I have a weird relationship with cutscenes in games. On the one hand, they can keep a game feeling fresh and entertaining by breaking up the gameplay and allowing the narrative side to take over, and on the other, they can be a huge fuck you to everything I love about games. Cutscenes are such an understandable natural evolution of storytelling in games, and there are so many reasons why they're still the reigning champ and the go-to solution for most AAA developers. On the whole, I think we connect with and engage most strongly with stories about characters, and to tell a specific story about a specific character, you need specific things to happen. And to make those specific things happen, you need to yank the controller out of the player's hands and make them watch their character do the things you want them to do. As a species, we communicate primarily through language. Early video games didn't really have the capacity to include hours of voice acting and motion capture, and so the story of the game would either be told in text form within the manual, or during the game itself. Even though it would be possible, no one is going to have a good time reading a wall of text during actual gameplay. It's much more effective to just separate the two, and have the gameplay for the fun part, and these prehistoric proto-cutscenes for the narrative part. As technology improved, it became easier and easier for games to tell compelling stories using incredible voice actors and 3D character models.
Call me Otacon.
Otacon?
It stands for Otaku Convention.
And other than RPGs, which still play like boring reading simulators for nerds, most games use super cool guy breathtakingly cinematic awesome explosive cutscenes to spoon feed us their narrative like we're watching a movie, with ourselves as the main character. And this brings me to my third point about why cutscenes are so ubiquitous, and that's because they take the form that we have been familiar with for decades, if not centuries. Why take a risk and go through all the work devising an intricate narrative that can be told through environmental clues, body language, and gameplay alone, when you can tell an equally compelling story using the cinematic techniques that have existed since before you were born? At its core, it's this contradiction and taking away control that pisses me off the most about cutscenes. When the story is so clearly focused around them, with so much effort put into the writing and camera work, and the gameplay is just shooting stuff or delivering packages, it feels like they've just stapled two different ideas together, and even if both parts are good, I'm always left feeling more disconnected than intrigued. It feels like the developer thinks I'm too much of a baby to be given control through this masterpiece of a story they're trying to tell, and so to experience their game the way they want me to, I've got to sit there like a dickhead with a lifeless, enfeebled controller in my hands and wonder why the fuck I'm not watching a movie instead. I'm being harsh, but there are a lot of games that I love that use this kind of cinematic storytelling. As much as I take the piss out of it, I love the story of Red Dead Redemption 2, and I think Arthur Morgan is one of the greatest protagonists of all time. I just feel like I was watching a TV series rather than playing a game. I really do think cutscenes can be done well, and cutscenes can have some genuinely awesome stuff in them. Awesome stuff that could by all accounts never be programmed into the game to allow you to do it. In this sense, they justify their own existence, and I really do like them when they're portraying mad shit and inspiring awe in me, rather than just playing out like a film. So far, I've made it seem like a clear-cut situation, but that's really not the case, and there are a lot of examples of games that use cutscenes in unique and interesting ways that make them completely captivating and worthwhile to engage with. To get the shit out of the way first, there are QuickTime events. I think there are rare examples of this working well, like this bit in Heavy Rain, or the thumbstick kill on Poseidon, but on the whole I just don't like QuickTime events. I find them more a test of reactions rather than actual fun gameplay, and I just don't enjoy pressing random buttons that don't have any real corresponding effect in the game. Rather than a fun Easter egg or bonus from getting them, you're punished with failure if you aren't quick enough and have to start again from scratch. Hideo Kojima has always been a risk taker when it comes to game design, and as much as he is possibly the #1 offender when it comes to long cutscenes, the Metal Gear Solid series is the first time I remember actually being able to have fun during cutscenes. Many of the cutscenes from Metal Gear Solid 3 onwards have interactive elements, from watching the boss take the piss out of Raiden, to seeing through Snake's tear-filled eyes, to looking at Naomi, to pissing about in the Nomad with the mini Metal Gear, to being able to see through the 16-year-old Paz Ortega's clothing in the first 5 minutes of Peace Walker. Wait, what? What the fucking hell is wrong with you, Kojima? On the subject of Peace Walker, the cutscenes in that game are absolutely breathtaking. I'm not going to make any guesses as to why the extreme stylistic change, but I just love them. I'd seen them before plenty of times and always thought they looked pretty crappy, but when I actually got the chance to play the game and see them for myself, I was blown away. There's something about that manga/comic book style, with all their sound effects and movement lines, that makes them feel so dynamic. The way it's drawn to begin with, reminiscent of the original concept art, is beautiful, and the framing of each drawing is perfect, but the fact that they actually move around the page and have little details like the smoke moving on Snake's cigar, or the ability to move around the page and zoom in and out, makes them feel alive in a way a 3D cutscene just isn't. In a similar vein, as someone who may or may not quite like the animes, the anime-style cutscenes in Persona 5 were such a treat that I almost felt like I needed to play the entire game based on the strength of that first cutscene alone. Actually, fuck that. The intro sequence by itself was enough of a reason to put 150 hours into that game. But seriously, those cutscenes are so good and so special. They were the highlight of my playthrough in a game which I absolutely loved to begin with, and I would take their two-dimensional gorgeousness over the most prettiest 3D rendering prom queen winner cutscene in the AAA market every day of the week. There is another series that uses cutscenes sparingly and to their full effect. It's one that I don't have a particular preference for personally, and I never mention it on this channel. I think it's called the Souls series. If ever a game did storytelling right, it's the Souls series, and they don't neglect their cutscenes either. When you get one, you know it's a big deal, and they're always fucking amazing to watch. Unlike most games that use cutscenes as miniature movies with literal hours of back and forth dialogue between characters. Just for context, Red Dead Redemption 2 has like 20 hours of them. The Souls series tells you everything you need to know with either purely visual information or just a few lines of extremely memorable and quotable dialogue. Within 5 seconds, you can tell exactly what's going on with Artorias. He's badass, he's got a broken arm, and he's being corrupted. No words needed. In comparison to the 20-ish hours of Red Dead cutscenes, all of Bloodborne's, including the fantastic DLC, can be watched in under 30 minutes. Instead of being completely overwhelmed, they leave you wanting more, and I for one could watch their cutscenes 100 times and never get tired of them. I do have to give Rockstar points for getting at least some of their dialogue out during horse riding or driving scenes, but it's still fucking insane how many cutscenes are in their games. The new God of War is the current AAA king of getting this balance of cinematic cutscenes and action right. The cutscenes range from really heartfelt father-son moments, to rip-roaring moments in the best boss fights, to flipping a mother-flipping temple, and I never once felt like I was watching a movie. There are a few reasons I think God of War does so well in this space, and the first is the single uncutting camera. Because the camera doesn't cut and rather just moves during cutscenes, the line between the two is much more blurry, and so I still feel like I'm playing the game even when I'm not. The second is that they don't sacrifice the gameplay. Unlike a lot of games that tell a great story at the cost of great gameplay, God of War does both, and the combat is fucking awesome and extremely engaging with plenty of options, and it fits right into the narrative since Kratos is a badass god of war. The two coexist in harmony instead of being antagonizing forces. And the third is that they just aren't very long. They're short, to the point, and serve a very specific purpose. Whether that's a high adrenaline action moment, a funny Scottish guy talking, or Kratos seeing a pot with his face on, each one is memorable and unique. Basically, what I'm trying to say here is that even though cutscenes can be absolute pieces of shit that turn interactive games into movies, There are a lot of ways to make them actually interesting and engaging, and make me personally look forward to them rather than make me wish they were over and wonder how much of the story I'll miss by skipping them. By making them fun, visually pleasing, and above all short, it's possible to utilize them to their fullest and keep players engaged without sacrificing what should be the core of the game, the gameplay. Thank you to Santa Monica Studio for making me actually enjoy a AAA game. Thank you to Hideo Kojima for being a literal insane man and always pushing the boat out. And thank you for watching. Peace.